Everybody, wait a minute. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. Hey, hey, hey. What's up, world? Welcome to I Mix What I Like, right here on I Mix What I Like. I'm Jared Ball. Welcome, 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 everybody. Please do like, share, subscribe. And yeah, I'm very close to getting back to the original 5,000 subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed, please do. And however else you want to support and can support the platform, please do. It's good to see everybody. Got a couple things to get to, have some fun with. Let me see. And a couple of updates. This was a very interesting week and weekend. Why is the chat not showing up in here? Why am I not seeing the chat? Huh. I'll have to, let's see if I can, my chat is not showing up in my Restream Studio. Anyway, let's see if we can get that fixed. But it's good to see folks. Chitty Macha, DC Joe Black, Brittany, Simon, Eric, Alex, Peace, Librarian. Big Pun is in the building. Oh, I know the chat is here, Big Pun. The issue is it's not showing up in my little studio over here. So now every time I switch platforms, I get a new problem to deal with, apparently. But so I'll have to try to catch up a different way. I really don't know why that's not showing up. See, it doesn't. Oh, there it is. If I do it here, it shows up, but it's not showing up in the back. So we'll just roll with it like this. That's what's up. What's up? the only thing is I cannot highlight from there. That's the thing. So we'll see. Maybe I'll get some tech support, and we'll see how that goes. But so listen, let me first make this announcement now, and then at least one of these announcements, and then I'll come back to and continue to make it as we go. But starting Monday on Black Liberation Media, I am going to, that's not what I meant to show yet. There we go. Starting Monday, we are doing because I have it in subscriber only mode. But why doesn't that? Okay, but why doesn't that show in studio? Okay. Unless you're a subscriber. Wait. No. I see the chat in, for instance, my overlay or in the YouTube stream itself, just not in my studio where I can highlight or share. All right. But starting, so let me see something here. So what is going on here? Let me see this. If we do it like this, so there I am. My bad, everybody. So starting Monday, each week we're doing a commemoration of Malcolm X, 100 years, commemorating 100 years of Malcolm X, which will culminate with a grand finale on Monday, May 19th, his actual 100th birthday. So just a heads up that going forward, the over there, the Monday morning show on Black Liberation Media will be part of this series, 100 Years of Malcolm X, and the credit for the idea goes absolutely to let's see, the credit for the idea goes to,
you just don't read, beloved,
himself. So it was Hiram's idea, and after he surveyed the landscape a little bit, he thought it would be a good idea. So I agree, and I'm happy to try to do it. So that's how we're gonna do. That's how we're gonna roll with it. And then these overlays don't show up right either. I mean, these video drops don't show up either. Man, I'm gonna have to deal. What's up with the restream, folks? What's up with this? All right. So, okay. So big shout out to Hiram for the idea, and we will proceed with that. We're gonna do a little bit of Malcolm X tonight, though. We got a little bit, and oh my goodness, somebody, I owe you an apology already because you sent me something that you owe me an apology for that I forgot to again write note who to credit for sending me this, but it really would be to shame on you. How but we're going to get to that in a little bit, because the posthumous assassination of Malcolm X that continues in the way he's misrepresented is just diabolical. Access it here. Okay, I don't think I'm going to let that go because I don't think I'm communicating. Yeah. Saying is not working. It does not show. Okay, so dang, now I can't. Let's see. So let me pull this back up so I can at least see some of the chat here. We bien. Yeah, Hiram, exactly. DC Joe Black. Hiram said it, so just make it happen. It's of course, of course. All right, can we get some? All right, what else? Yeah, it is a great idea, and in part, so this. We'll come back to this, but this is in part. It came up this weekend too. So, um, let's see what is being said here. I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna have to just let that. I need to just. So, okay, one other thing, and I think this relates. For my classes, I just dug this out again, and I'm actually, I have to admit, I'm a little more proud of it than maybe is warranted. But I'm not going to play this because it comes with this. It has a serious copyright hit in it. But using this documentary, Fastball, I did this some years ago, and I just started using it again this semester in one of my classes because I think it just makes such a good point. And but in this documentary, Fastball, that Kevin Costner put together some years ago about baseball and pitching and the greatness of the game and all this blah blah blah, there was this very interesting section where they talk about the struggle batters have hitting the fastest fastball pitches. And what they argue is that is the batters argue that the hardest throwing pitchers can throw a fastball that when it crosses in front of, and here's Bob Gibson who defends the myth, that when it crosses home plate, they argue it rises. It goes actually upwards. Now, of course, physics would demonstrate this to be impossible, but their argument is that again, when it's thrown that fast, it rises and makes it difficult to hit. And if it doesn't rise, it rides, they would say. And the point here that this Professor Franklin shows, is that the problem batters have is that a 100-mile-an-hour fastball pitch is moving faster than the eye can communicate to the brain. So what the batter will see is the ball as it's just leaving the pitcher's hand. And then what actually happens is shortly after it leaves the pitcher's hand, it's moving so fast that the eye loses track of it. So by the time, and then automatically what our eyes do, and our brains do rather, is take that initial preset data, that is, where is the ball and the trajectory of the arm as the ball is coming out from the pitcher's hand. And then it uses that initial preset data to say when the ball to calculate where the ball should be at the time it crosses the mound. But what happens is, because again the eye cannot move as fast and communicate as fast as the ball is moving, and it loses track of it, when the ball reappears and is then now consciously seen, or the eye catches up, the messages catch up, the ball is actually higher than where the eye initially and the brain initially communicated and calculated the data. And what this professor shows is that, of course, a faster pitch, it just descends gravity, and he calls it the Magnus force and all this, but it just descends more slowly. than a slower forming thrown pitch. But the eye can't communicate that fast, so it has to fill in everything with those presets. And this is why when it crosses the batter's eye line and they swing and don't hit it, they're thinking, how did I not hit it? Or how did they get the ball to rise as it's crossing the plate? And my bat is constantly underneath and missing. So what I was trying to use with this video, and we'll see to what extent it's effective Monday, is to say, this is what happens in society with media. That, and certainly propaganda, that media are communicating the ideas and the theory, the ideological frameworks and the worldview that is embedded in us from even prior to our birth. And then but it's containing those baked in presets. US is a democracy. Civil rights was the effect of civil rights was to create a world where race is not so much of an issue. Black people are free. Slavery's over. Capitalism is good. Hey, Black capitalism will work. Black entrepreneurialism is a good thing. All of those are the baked in presets. But then media carrying that message are thrown out of the pitch of life. And we step up to the bait, to the plate, saying, I'm ready. This is a free country. I'm ready to succeed in it. And we take our life swing and it don't work like that. But because of those presets, we end up with some levels of confusion, ideological or otherwise. And what we end up trying to do is to do the work of our brain working with our eyes to fill in the gaps of what we missed. And what we end up filling those gaps in with are that propaganda, the propagated messaging. So when we step up to the plate, it's a free and equal society. Oh, I swing and I miss and I'm still broke. Oh, that's because I'm financially illiterate. Oh, that's because I come from a culture of poverty. Oh, that's because we didn't get the memo. By the way, did you see I hope you all continue to watch the Brokish series and correcting John Hope Bryant. I was catching up on some of it on my ride back today, which I'll get to in a minute. But I do disagree with them on the discussion of reparations payouts. I don't think that should be. It's just not enough. But anyway, we can come back to that. But yeah, but we fill it in. We're encouraged to fill it in with all of that false messaging and narrative. So what we end up needing, and increasingly so, are the movements and the organizations and the contexts that will produce more Malcolms, who can then help us fill in those gaps with a more correct analysis. So I'll put the link in the show description, but that video's on the channel if you want to see it. It's like a 7-minute video, but it just got so beaten up with copyright. I didn't want to mess with it again. But I really thought that was dope. I really, and I think I explained it better in that video than I did here, but I really like what I was trying to do there, and what that video conveys. And why so many bad, and then you have, and again, for my generation or those older than me, you see all these legends, Hank Aaron, Bob Gibson, I can't even remember, but from older to newer generations, all these top ball players, and they're all but one, I think, all are saying, yeah, it's these scientists. Hank Aaron is even on here saying, man, these scientists have never played any baseball, so they don't really know what they're talking about. And it's like, yeah, but you don't have to play baseball to know how gravity works, to know physics. But it's those presets, and the presets we get in societies like these are, they're it's this colonization. So it's like our presets are jacked up. And that pitch of life is going so fast that, we step up, we swing, and we miss, and then people are telling us, "Oh, that's because you suck at baseball. You didn't practice hard enough." So, all right. So that's that. Okay, somewhat similarly, who was I watching that did this one? Yuri Smooter. Shout out to Yuri, who sent me this. It's a year old, and I had actually seen it, but it's worth a quick revisitation. But it's this so this dude Rick Beato, who is a pretty popular YouTuber, former music producer. You know, he knows a lot about the music industry. And I just want to play a quick excerpt of this little bit here. He had a conversation with one of his buddies from a year ago, talking about what ruined music, or I think specifically rock music, what destroyed rock music, and it's interesting, the overlap, because I've said the same thing about hip hop, but check out what this little bit of this excerpt here.
On this one thing that 1996 was a pivotal year because of the Telecommunications Act that Bill Clinton signed that consolidated radio here in the United States. And essentially two companies, Clear Channel and Cumulus, bought up most of the radio stations. Before that, you had local stations that would be controlled. Let's say a company might own 6 stations in a particular area. These stations would be supported by local businesses advertising on them. But what was the theory in them in this Communications Act?
Well, the original idea before then was you should have local ownership of media and you should have as many different voices as possible. And the people who wanted the Telecommunications Act wanted to say, we'll have more leverage in the marketplace if we have 100 stations.
Right.
What we miss about pre-1996 was when you only own 5 or 6 stations, you have to have individual program directors for every one of the stations you own. And what happened after that passed, when somebody bought 100 stations, corporate America hates duplication in jobs. So they fired all the local program directors and put one person in an office in New York or Atlanta to program all the stations.
Okay, so
and of course, what Glenn Ford importantly added to this was that particularly in black radio, the first thing they did was also, or among the first things they did was also get rid of independent or locally based news reporting. So he would focus on the fact that they killed black radio news, right along with the relative autonomy of DJs and local artists in their communities, and their ability to access radio.
You have the program director, which is the head of the radio station. You also have DJs. Now, most of the people I've interviewed talk about one station really breaking them. Andy Summers talked about this. There was one station that broke the police. Pretty much everyone I've interviewed from these huge bands, one station breaks them. It's very rare that something just jumps right out. Like a Nirvana jumped out they put the video on MTV and it just blew up and that was it.
Well, when you have a mom and pop business, the individual people who work at the radio station, the DJs, had a lot more influence than they would later when everything's controlled from a corporate headquarters, when everyone's told what to.
So I just wanted to share that quick little clip. Wait a second, chat. Please toggle this on and off from another tab. My bad, everybody. I'm actively still chatting with this tech support, so I apologize. It's not good timing. I thought I could quickly get this taken care of. But the other thing that of course that happens with all of this is the erasure of local news, and then the organization of the playlist, which allows for an ever increasing consolidated ownership of radio and then television and then initially newspapers, because what the Telecommunications Act allowed for more of was one person to not only own the radio station but also the local TV and also the local paper, because prior to that the regulations were such that if you owned the local TV, you couldn't own the local radio and the local newspaper. All of that got obliterated in 96 under, again, Bill Clinton, and allowed for, again, more corporate control over the playlist that people would get. It took the control out of the DJs. If you remember when we did the Decipher Hip Hop Block review a couple weeks ago, we heard from people like DJ Book here in DC and others, or down the street in DC, and others talking about how all day long, their 8-hour shift in commercial radio, play the playlist, same song every hour. And they would volunteer, drive all the way up to northwest corner of DC every weeknight, every week, to go on 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night and play whatever they wanted just for the love. So, but that was part of the colonization process, the takeover. But yeah, I also did like that point. I see some of you talking about the police in the chat and whatnot. The idea was, that a local artist could show up at the radio and get heard. And if you broke big in one part of the country, then your manager or whoever would go to some other city and say, hey, this band is hot in DC, you should play them, but that's all they those days are definitely over. Those days. Oh, wait a minute. Hold up. We got some breaking news. Fresh off the presses. On Public Square Amplified, Renee Johnston's book review of Tip of the Spear. Oh man, I'm gonna have to read this. Almost 2 million people are currently incarcerated within the U.S. prison system. Rarely does the public have a window into the lives and living conditions of the people inside prison walls beyond provocative headlines and Hollywood screens that dehumanize and demonize. Oh, shucks. There's emerging scholarship which challenges this worldview by re-examining the historical record informed by the narratives of people with the direct lived experience of radical organizing behind bars. Yes. Oh, this is about to be dope. Oh, shucks. Photo by Tafari. What? Oh, this is fly right here. Wait a minute. Does she talk about... Hold on. What does she say here? Wait a minute. Yeah. Yo, chapter 4. Let me see. Chapter 4 outlines extreme acts of sexual violence and torture used as a tool of dehumanization, both before and after the Attica Revolt. Burton connects racism, white masculinity, and rage, as well as the role of capitalism with prison walls. The white man's ongoing effort to maintain racial and gender dominance helps explain why the political repression of Black men often takes explicitly sexualized forms. Yo, that chapter is... And seriously, if you know those who intend to offer meaningful engagement or interventions in terms of discussions of gender and sexuality, please encourage them to review that chapter. Yeah, so this is fun. I can't wait to get back to this. Yes. All right. All right. Read it more thoroughly. The book exposes prisons as enclosed battlegrounds where acts of war are perpetrated among those being held captive. The organization of and firsthand accounts, in addition to the provision of additional works worthy of review, makes Tip of the Spear a book everyone should read. In Burton's words, readers will not be rewarded with a comforting resolution, nor will they find prescriptions for future action. What this text provides is an archive and a theory-driven narration exposing a war that has been intentionally concealed. You know what? You know what? You know what? I'm stealing that. You heard it here first. You saw the review here first. Hold up. I'm texting. Hold up. I am saying right now live that I am stealing your concluding paragraph. I don't even know if she's here. Is she here? I don't know if she's here, but I just let her know I'm stealing this. So I'm stealing this for me, because I heard it again this weekend, and I promise you, I'm not going to be as polite anymore. No, I'm just playing. But I heard it again. What's up with the solutions, J Ball? Well, I'm gonna say, look at here. Look at here. See, I would to activate the chat. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on a second. Wait a second. Oh, I was trying to drop the link in the chat. Let me see something. Wait, did it just work? Now it's working over here. Hold on a second. All right. We all right here? We still all right? I got the link in the chat. Because now I can see the all right. Yeah, respect Renee so much. You should respect more. Respect her more. So here's the link. It's in the chat. Please check out that review. But I'm stealing that because I heard again. J Ball, what's up with the solutions? Well, it's funny you should ask, I will say in the future. It's funny you should ask. Because as my homegirl said about my homeboy's book, readers will not be rewarded with a comforting resolution, nor will they find prescriptions for future action. What this text provides is an archive, maybe I have to adjust that word, and a theory-driven narration, I might have to adjust that phrase, exposing a war that has been intentionally concealed. Because with all due respect to myself and, of course, to Dr. Burton, I do not think I have offered an archive as he has, not at all. And I certainly have not fleshed out any theory-driven narration. But I also don't offer no comfort and resolution, and nor will you find prescriptions for future action. What you will find is my discussion of a war that has been intentionally concealed. Word up. Word up. That's how you know. Yeah, that's what I was waiting for. All right, so that was perfect. I love that. That came that showed up right on time. It really is, though. His book is a modern classic. My bad. Then click the link and read it without my logo in front of it. And yes, everybody, please do indeed hit the like button. And if you have not yet subscribed, please go ahead and do that so I can go ahead and get back to that initial 5,000. And then we can keep it moving. I mean, feel free to have us go beyond that, of course. But let's get back there. We're so close. And shout out to everybody who has participated in that. And to the 4% of you who have said no in the poll to helping out with that mission.
But this particular situation, out of many situations that I didn't.
I don't even know if the drops show up anymore in this thing. Okay. Oh, I am. I've been using ever since it came out. I've been using it every semester in various ways. So in both my intro to Black Studies and sociology and mass communication courses, I use it. Everybody reads the introduction, and then this semester they're going to different classes going to read different sections of the book. But it's too valuable not to find ways to work it in. And I think I think it's very different from a lot of what I've read too. It in its ability to combine, real heavy academic scholarship with a kind of grassroots militant radicalism that I don't know. I don't know that too many people could do that. Or I haven't seen it done in quite that way very often. So, but absolutely. All right. I really don't have much more to say about this than what has been said already, and what we've said even on Saturdays with Renee. But the BuyingPower Google alert just stays busy, and again in the context, and so sort of this is again. I will say this much though about my BuyingPower argument here is that it continues to show relevance, not only in its constant reference and regurgitation, but because of the politics embedded in it. So, because whether it's the overarching Black capitalism and capitalist analysis, or whether it's sort of the more various subsets of that around entrepreneurialism and the Black dollar, it suggests, or whether it's here about boy and boycotting it, or DEI. And again, shout out to Ori for his discussion of DEI as liberal counterinsurgency. But this BuyingPower argument or approach keeps encouraging and being used certainly by commercial Black media and punditry, but also is impacting a lot of Black audiences in having them assume that there is this latent power to impact the economy, to impact the decision-making of corporations, to impact and to bring material benefit back to the community. There's a lot of, and it came up with me this weekend again. There's a real difficulty and a reluctance to be freed of the claims. Now, again, this is just saying the NAACP is calling for consumers to steer buying power away from companies that have ditched DEI. Again, as Renee has already shown on her show a couple weeks ago, the impact of DEI on the Black community and its relationship to these major companies is minuscule at best, and to the extent it benefits Black people, it's only the Black bourgeoisie. So it has not had any meaningful, but again, they make this claim about the $2 trillion buying power, and then they talk about their Black consumer advisory memo that said Black consumers have 1.8 trillion annually. And then, I mean, I know, but then as you go and pull up the actual reports, let's see, where did I just drop it to? So, yeah. And let's see, when you pull up the actual report, the importance of the Black American consumer, which is from Katz Multicultural. So it just seems like there's so many people saying it. It's just so many sources. But look at, I mean, they're even going back to some of the silly initial stuff about the Selig Center. If anybody happens to remember, the very first, in I think 2008, the very first commentary I did for Black Agenda Report on this topic, I talked about how the Selig Center was using all these scandalous mechanisms for arriving at this alleged power. They would, and then that in that initial commentary, I showed how Selig Center, one of them, they would say things like they would say things like spending overall goes down when people get older. But because Black people, they didn't say it this way, but what they showed was, but because Black people die earlier than whites, that was used to show that, in other words, fewer Black people were living to the ages where most people stopped spending. And they used that to conclude this was part of how they were concluding at that time that there was this buying power because Black people were dying before whites. That's the kind of silliness. And it's similar here. They try to talk about Black economic power is going to come from the fact that there are more Black people being born into the world. The Black American population is younger with a median age of 33 versus the US population, which is 39. Holy jeebers, Batman. But really, and then they're back, oh, look at the buying power with a big expanding yellow arrow. But again, the same thing I just showed last week, I think. Source, Selig Center for Economic Growth, as published by Nielsen, Engaging Black Audiences, Diverse Intelligence Series 2025, which I showed you a couple weeks ago, does the same bad methodology that gets regurgitated over and over and over again. So it's just everywhere all the time. Everybody using the same source. It's and nobody looking at it critically. And why? Why should they? The Black commercial press benefits from the myth because they can use the claim to project a purchasing power that will attract more ad revenue. You know? But just quickly, because I was looking at this the other day, if you just want to be reminded, the Selig Center for Economic Growth is housed in the Terry College of Business at the University of Georgia. And if you look that up, it's in the Bank of America building down there. And their primary purpose is to provide economic expertise to Georgia businesses and entrepreneurs. To Georgia businesses and entrepreneurs. And this single source entity has become and is still the dominant point of origin for the claim that Black people's economic strength overall is increasing. It's absolutely absurd, even before you start looking at the way the reports are compiled. All right, but let's keep it moving. Okay, so just a little bit of more silliness. But so I watched this very interesting discussion of cryptocurrency the other day. I'll put the link.
It's great to be alive right now. We're alive at the greatest time in financial history.
Money is power.
I just want to again focus on the hat. Long story short, you can watch this entire video, but again, long story short, most importantly, long story short, Jared is right. Okay? Jared is right. That's obviously what is most important. That behind all of this stuff is a bunch of right-wing conservative white folks with very reactionary ideas who are claiming blockchain and crypto are freedom and liberatory for themselves. Okay? All right. So I just want to, but within this, beyond that, there was a couple of clips in here with a very interesting woman who, per your boy, is going to be here in coming around here at some point in some longer form discussion of what she says short form in here. So I've already reached out to her after seeing this and said, I'd like to hear a little bit more about your work and how you reach these conclusions. She's already agreed. We're working on the time, but check this out.
Digital asset.
Bust is going to come.
Penny on a digital asset. Billion-dollar industry with a radical vision that could threaten the whole economy, even for those of us who have never spent a penny on a digital asset.
Bust is going to come. When it does, if the traditional financial system and the crypto ecosystem have sort of fully merged, we're ready to have another 2008 moment.
So that's part of it, that the crypto nonsense is fully merging with the already, from my words, ridiculously, absurdly corrupt economic system. And they say a lot about why that is. And this is really a fascinating video in its totality, but I'm just skipping to the parts where oh man, where and this is a mess. This is a mess. Hold on a second. Where Professor Hillary J. Allen is her name. professor at American University, and with a finance law, something like that is her work. But yeah, here we go.
That they didn't have certainty.
Read, and it made me wonder, why didn't Gensler provide clear guidelines?
It wasn't that they didn't have certainty. It was that the certainty that was offered to them impeded what they wanted to do.
That's Hillary Allen. She's a law professor at American University. She investigated the last financial crisis for Congress.
There is no law that is completely certain. Every law is open to all kinds of interpretation, even if it seems clear on its face. For example, fraud is illegal. Does the statute spell out in chapter and verse every single thing that counts as fraud? No, because if you did that, that would just give a roadmap for anyone who wanted to commit fraud.
That's the heart of it.
Oh, wait, I didn't mean to do that. Hold on. But what she was speaking to specifically there was that Gensler, who was the former SEC chair that has already been removed since Trump took office, was trying to regulate crypto. Again, I have to say a lot of this is about is about me being right. If you all remember back when I was debating Reggie Middleton, the very first one that Geechee moderated, he kept trying to catch me on what is crypto a currency? And he kept wanting to get me on that. And he never wanted to speak on it clearly himself because he wanted to protect his own coin. And without getting into all of that. But what they were really trying to do is that they didn't want it to be, they wanted Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies to be considered a commodity, not a security. Because the Commodity Trades Commission does whatever, they don't get involved in oversight like the Securities Exchange Commission does, who oversees securities, which is what these investment assets are. Because as you're going to hear here, they can't be a commodity because the commodity suggests in something actual, tangible exists. But they did, so Gensler was saying, no, these are securities and they need to be regulated. And they were like, nah. So crypto flooded the last election. And yes, Kamala was going to do the same thing. And to assure that there was no proper regulation. Okay, so then this is the other part I wanted you to hear from her.
But still gave consumers enough comfort for anyone who's clear on its offered to them.
Clear-cut guidelines and regulation, and they never did it whatsoever.
Everyone at the conference had the same story about Gensler, and I found myself nodding along. It matched what I read, and it made me wonder, why didn't Gensler at American University? She investigated the last financial crisis for Congress. Paperwork like everyone else, which involves financial statements.
There's no way they could come up with audited financials because there's nothing behind them. So what the crypto industry was looking for was regulation that didn't enforce those kind of things, but still gave consumers enough comfort that they'd be.
Okay, so that's the point that was the part where I reached out to her and said, I would like to have a conversation with you more about what you mean by that. That line right there in particular is what I quoted her in the email, my initial request, saying, what do you, because I think I understand, but I'd like to hear more experts elaborate on this. What does it mean when you say there's nothing behind these these cryptocurrencies? By the way, if you're watching CoffeeZilla, please pay attention. He's been dropping a lot of stuff. The corruption is just absurd, and that Trump and Elon and what's his name, the Argentinian president, are running around together while they're selling, and while that same dude I showed you in that other Zilla video is selling fake coins for all of them. Oh my goodness. And yet per my particular argument, this is what's being sold to Black communities as finally our chance out of slavery. Yo. So I look forward to that conversation. To talk more about there's not, they can't be a commodity because there is no commodity. There's nothing. They don't perform. They don't perform anything. You can't buy stuff with them. You can't plug a hole in the wall with them. You can't paint a fence with them. You can't do nothing with them. Oh, shucks. Cam Doogie, welcome. Thank you for joining. Right on. So yeah, it's yeah, that's what I'm saying. The Argentinian president just rug pulled $100 million. That's exactly it. Yeah, me and Coffee's. Yeah, I think I'm way unfamous enough. I will. You know what? I'll give it a shot. You know what? I will. I'll reach out to him. And see. I'll see if I can. Absolutely. I would love to rap with CoffeeZilla and try to see if we could collectively turn him into a radical. He's a good dude. I think, he comes across as a trustworthy, kind of character, but I think his politics are just, his politics. He's still, his most recent video I saw, he was talking to people about trying to show people how to properly and sort of, invest. It's like he's trying to save capitalism. But I think his investigations are fascinating and very well done. So I would, but yeah, I wouldn't mind rapping with him. Okay, all right. So this week, I had this really, relatively speaking, I had this really fun week. So Wednesday went up to Kehinde Andrews, is working on a documentary around Malcolm X and invited me to be interviewed in it. And I had just been also invited back to my beloved AfricanaStudies and Research Center, where I had the privilege of attending under the tutelage of its founding late great director, Dr. James Turner. And so I said, okay, I'll do a whole new little New York thing. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Wednesday, caught up with Kehinde, and then my homeboys Joaquin and Fredo and Mtume showed up. So that was a great time. Got to hang out a little bit. Salute to all of them. That was a lot of fun. And yeah, that was a lot of fun. And so salute to them. And when I did the interview with Kehinde, it was dope. So it was back again to the Audobon, which is under perennial like improvements and whatnot. And it's always surreal for me when I walk in there. And just show you a little bit of what I had put on Instagram about it. So, this is right in the front when you walk in, and then when you walk in the back there, back where the video is, you go to the right, and you see these steps leading up. A lot of this has been redone, and you see this beautiful art and Malcolm, a man who stands for nothing will fall for anything, quote. And you go upstairs and it's got this, it's a beautiful space, beautiful view, the murals, the paintings, and then it's awash with contradictions. I mean, there's it's run by Ilyasa, one of his daughters, and in her office, you see right there is pictures of I mean, a lot of contradictions, TD Jakes, Hillary Clinton, and, praise for Spike Lee, whose film, I just don't agree with, and all of that. And then, as I understood, maybe it was today, they had a function where Ben Crump was going to be there, and Al Sharpton, because they still have their ongoing lawsuit against the state. And although it seems like if Crump's involved, the goal isn't to put on a trial where there would be revelations about the state's intervention in Black struggle and assassination, but it'd be more like a, payday. And then, they were apparently giving an award to Al Sharpton. I mean, it's just very, very, but I was there, did a short interview, nice to meet Kehinde in person and to see the crew he's working with. And then, went and moved on and caught up with the crew. The next day, as I said, I got the wonderful opportunity to go back up to the Africana Studies and Research Center and be in this discussion with the incomparable Dr. Margaret Washington. And it was videotaped. The video I'm told I'll get a copy of, so I'll make it available as soon as I do. It was good. I had a really good time, but more importantly, I think the night before, I got to go and meet with and just have an informal dinner and chat with students, grad students, and faculty at the Telluride House, where I had never been when I was a student there. And got to see a little bit of what the house was there, the history of the house, and it's supposedly a place where people could study and learn about democracy, and it's let's see, I can pull it up here, and it's got this famous guest book in there, and it's very nice. So of course I heard about this is they gather and they have discussions, and I guess when I was there it was like the Africana, the African Black community had sort of taken it over, and got a really good vegan meal, and you have to apply to be in the house, and if you get in there, it comes with a scholarship, so you get all the get your tuition taken care of. It's like a big deal, right? So we got to go in there and had a kind of an informal talk where folks were asking me about my career, about activism, my thoughts on Malcolm, but who apparently had been at the house, and and it was funny because apparently when Amandla Thomas Johnson is a brother. If you already don't know about him, he's apparently pretty popular journalist, and he's going to be a future brilliant academic, who's currently in some tense situation with the university for allegedly being involved in some actions protesting the university's relationship with the military defense contract community. But he was sort of my host, giving me all this information. Real good dude, and salute to Amandla, and a brilliant dude. Again, we'll be hearing more from he. But he was saying that when Malcolm was there visiting, it was at a time when Paul Wolfowitz was a student in that house. So for those who don't, remember, one of the architects of the post 9/11 world that laid the groundwork for today, he was in that house. So again, shows some of the contradictions there. But but we got to have this really good conversation. I really enjoyed it. And it was, and I was just very honest about the status of my career, what I thought students should do, and encouraged. For instance, my big encouragement now is if you know you're going to be an academic, you need to get some university press publications earlier in your career. You might as well do that and give yourself another layer of protective measure so that you can engage the kind of radical work that we also encourage be done. Yeah, that was something I've become increasingly more thoughtful about, but also just having just some real honest conversations about career and how to exist as an academic or a guy. And the other thing I said to them is that, and it's something I'm just more clear about. Part of why I said that is that if you're going to be critical of this world from the position of an academic, and if you're going to be critical of other academics, you have to produce more of the kind of academic scholarship that they would be forced to address. Not that you're going to turn them, but if the goal. So in other words, I was saying to them, a lot of the issues I think I've had is that I would say I've been right in my criticisms, but I haven't produced enough of the academic scholarship to support those criticisms that would force those I am being critical of either to engage or others in the community to engage, even if the subject of that criticism doesn't want to. And so yeah, we had a very interesting, I think, fruitful conversation around that, and it was an honor that some of them at least appreciated it. It is, and as I said to Professor Rashay Richardson, who is now the director of Africana and who had invited me up there, she kept thanking me for being there, and I kept saying, the honor is mine. The goal has always been to maintain a relationship with the AfricanaStudies and Research Center. And the goal for me has always been to want to, I think for all of us who are getting older, to have some sort of meaningful impact on those coming up behind us. So to be able to do it, which is not always, an opportunity made available, is an honor. So yeah, that's interesting. You're saying the academics where you are lazy. You're thinking about going to teach high school. That's definitely harder. But So the other thing that I enjoyed about the discussion last night is that the academics I got to meet and the future academics that I got to meet are not lazy, and they're not what is often the stereotype of the ivory tower scholar, even those at the most ivory of towers. I don't do any official mentorship. No, nothing structural, and nothing that is outside the normal course of my work at Morgan. Although sometimes, every once in a while, someone from outside of the university and even these platform spaces will reach out and ask for some support or some mentoring from me. And I do what I can, but honestly, I don't do that. So nothing more than that. Sure. But my goal, my guidance would be similar to what I'm saying here. I think there are some things that I think that I could have done career-wise earlier on that might have made some things different. But do I subscribe to smaller YouTube pages all the time? All the time. And sometimes I do it just out of principle. Yeah, all the time. And what do you mean small? I mean, especially compared to this, I am the smaller one. So yeah, but anyway, so I just really big salute. And no, so, and again, in addition to Amandla Thomas Johnson, I got to meet someone I think you all have probably heard of, and who I know knows Musa and some others, who apparently was just up there not too long before me. Mahmoud Tal, who gave me a copy of his new book, The Malcolm Effect, with a foreword by Dr. Joy James, which at this point for me is another contradiction. We're gonna have to have a very interesting conversation in a couple days. I think we're about to have a very interesting conversation in a couple days. But that notwithstanding, one of the things that, first of all, what I like about the book is that it's not meant to be heavy academic scholarship. And what he does is he interviews a lot of people to help him work through different sections on race, religion, gender, and political economy. And so Dr. CBS and Dr. Layla Brown are in here. Who else do we know that's in here? Who else is in here that we know? I'm missing somebody else. But the one thing that I thought was really interesting, on page 66, he's in conversation with Dr. Robin Kelly, who I know everyone knows. And Dr. Kelly says, quote, "I am sympathetic towards Afro-pessimism. I understand it, but I've been trying to put forward an alternative kind of pessimism that builds on the ideas of the surrealist Pierre Nabil, who talks about revolutionary pessimism. It's much closer to Toni Morrison or Amiri Baraka's kind of pessimism. Pessimism is not the belief that you're going to fail. It's not even Gramsci's pessimism. But revolutionary pessimism says we recognize the catastrophe in front of us and we can't pretend it's not there. So we need to prepare to fight it at all costs. In other words, we can be optimistic in a way that allows us to believe that we're going to win because the moral arc of the universe bends towards justice." Now, I'm reading that and sharing that, not because I agree. In fact, I don't believe that there's any arc in the universe bending towards anything. In fact, the more I pay attention to my atheist debates channels and the science that they engage, the universe don't give a damn. As they say, the universe is just universing. And if you can hold on and make something out of it, salute. But the universe don't give a damn. So there is no arc bending towards justice. But what really struck me about that, especially given all the vitriol that I get just for saying I don't think Afro-pessimism is the nightmare it's been said to be in some circles, is that that's the kind of criticism or engagement I would expect from somebody of the caliber of a Robin Kelly. And by caliber, I don't just mean having a successful academic career, but I mean that by caliber, I mean anyone who has dedicated a majority of their adult life to the study of these issues. You don't have to be an elite academic for that. But the fact that he is an elite academic, having done all of that this is the kind of criticism he's saying, I don't agree with that Frank stuff. But let me tell you, let me just tell you I disagree without innuendo, without unsubstantiated claims, without overdoing what is supposed to be the nightmare of Afro-pessimism, and just saying, but this is what I think is more, and I like that. I thought that was, that at minimum is good for me. I'm good with that. Oh, Tommy Curry's in here. So I just thought that was pretty cool. And again, I don't agree with Kelly entirely on that point. And I don't agree entirely that And I don't think Afro-pessimism says we can't win. That's not how I interpret it, at least. But the point is, I kind of like that. And it's a big bag. Yeah. Mtume. I see you in our chat, in our text. Yeah. It's gonna have to be. I think we're gonna have to have. Anyway. But it's a big bag that Kelly is chasing. Like he's not chasing no little bag. It's a big bag. But in any event, my point is, and this was something else that came up this weekend that I really appreciated. So let me get back to that. Okay, so Mahmoud Tal. So and remember, Tal is another a targeted grad student up at Cornell for having stood in defense of Palestinian rights, and because he's Black, Muslim, an immigrant, his standing there is being threatened. So, who hasn't read Robert Allen? Yes, Esme is correct. If you have not read Robert Allen, stop doing that to yourself. Yes, it's been a long time. I have read his code book, and yes, but I don't have any off the top thoughts about it. To be honest, I've often felt that I've often been moved by and interested in the arguments of Neely Fuller and Frances Cress Welsing and her variation of it. I just like to put them in terms of my own mind in conversation with other folks. I remember I first got handed a Cress Welsing pamphlet when we were still in the Navy, and it argued that hippies grew their hair out and were dirty on purpose because of their unconscious desire to be Black. And so I was like, wow, that's And I have to admit, as much as I want to be critical of Fuller and Cress Welsing, I again, what I describe more often is my particular racialized trauma experience. I just can't. I can't put anything past the psychosis that comes with whiteness. Like it's so insane that it makes Fuller and Cress Welsing plausible to me. But I admit that Robert Allen speaks more closely to he should be the real culture's top thought leader, but All right. Okay. So then while I'm up there, I was thinking about, obviously thinking about Malcolm X and almost right along this week, I can't even remember it. It may have been even when after I don't remember the exact day, but somewhere this week, unfortunately, MarikaSherwood passed away. And first of all, I did not find out until talking to Amandla. So let me just skip a little bit here. Let me just skip a little. I'll come back to that. The joint at Africana was so dope to me. So I got to see Kofi Akri, the librarian in the John Henrik Clark Library, give a presentation about Malcolm X and reconnect with him. Salute to you, Kofi. Real cool dude. Got to see Professor Ann Adams and Professor Ndriasi Lumumba. Got to see, I met so many new people. Forgive me, I don't remember everybody's name at the moment. But then got to give a little brief presentation and be in conversation with Dr. Margaret Washington, where we got to sort of, and I hadn't really fully heard her full critique of Manning Marable's Malcolm X. And we got into that, and then had a nice Q&A, and in the Q&A, Russell Rickford was there himself, having been critical of having himself come out of the Manning Marable tree, passingly critical of our criticism of Marable's work, but correctly standing up against the genocide in Palestine and getting himself in trouble with Cornell. And you damn right I signed on to whatever that his petition supporting him, because he was exactly right for that stance. But he was there and had a rousing exchange. I'll come back to powerful exchange. Appreciated the exchange. Then there was, and of course, there also was Dean Janice Turner, Dr. James Turner's widow. And we got to hear from her. Then we got to go to dinner with everybody, and break bread and have conversations. And the crux of it is, for me, is that what I wanted to convey tonight was that point that there are academics, even in elite white institutions, who are there to take advantage of resources, obviously, but in their heart, whether we fully agree politically is separate, but in their heart, I absolutely believe they think they are advancing a radical politic for Black people. With very conscious attempts not to be ivory tower, very conscious attempts to challenge their own privilege, very conscious attempts to take advantage of what was not always a privilege in their families. So, but again, we're not always on the same page, admittedly. But the idea that everybody out here is just selling out for a degree and a bag is not, would not be fair or accurate either. So during the event, we were talking about, obviously, Malcolm X, and a large part of my presentation is always the way Malcolm is presented in pop culture and the way his ideas are framed, and the radicalism is diminished. And Marable's book came up. One thing I'll say this: I pitched my thesis with Rickford there. So Russell Rickford was part of Manning Marable's Malcolm X project team at Columbia University, so he knew Manning Marable very well. He considered himself like a I don't know if he would use the protege, but somebody he came up under, learned a lot from, truly respected. He said Manning Marable made him a socialist. Specifically with his book, How Capitalism Underdeveloped Black America, which I read once upon a time. It's a great book. I really liked that book. And I remember it said in there that AfSME, the union my father was in, was all wrapped up with the CIA at one point. I was like, damn, that was a little difficult. That was a little difficult. But I don't remember him elaborating much on that. So anybody got any information? More information on AfSME's relationship with the intelligence community. But with Rickford there, I wanted to float my thesis. So I shared my criticism of his colleagues, and my exchange with Zahir Ali. But then I said that if there was one, it's not a regret, but if there's one thing I would want to possibly be able to go back and change about our book, co-edited with Dr. Todd Stephen Burrows, A Lie of Reinvention, Correcting Manning Marable's Malcolm X. I would have wanted to change the title, I said, to A Lie of Reinvention, Correcting the book attributed to Manning Marable. Because as I've said, I've become increasingly suspicious that because of his ill health, because of some of the commentary around the publisher, particularly Wendy Wolf, that Marable didn't see that final book in its final form. Marable didn't. And that if you look at, as I also suggested, and Todd does a little bit of this in the coda in our book, but I think it's worthy of like a full-fledged project if it hasn't been done already. That if you look at the history of Marable's writings, all those journal articles, all those books, there's a lot we might not agree with every time, but it's the Malcolm book was such a departure in its really flawed scholarship, its flawed interpretation and analysis of Malcolm and his ideas. Like it was. So I said, I'm more suspicious that, and Rickford said, and he said it publicly on tape. So I don't feel like I'm speaking out of turn. I'm not sharing some of what we all got into at the dinner table, but that Marable wrote the book, that he was, consciously engaged, and that he and Rickford disagreed. And it's a very powerful moment. I hope it conveys in the video when it comes out that what Rickford was saying, that I'm enamored with this man. I honor this man, but we disagreed on this, and I challenged him. I brought it up, and then it just didn't go anywhere. And he was essentially saying, my interpretation of what Rickford was saying was that this was just Marable making a mistake. He was just mistaken in his this final approach with Malcolm. So I thought that was, for me, that was a highlight of the public exchange. The private exchange was, all I'll say is, after having the private dinner table discussion with Rickford, with Thomas Johnson, with Rashay Richardson, with others at the table, Margaret Washington, I'm more buoyed in my own engagement and contribution in this exchange. Like I'm more confident than I was even before that why I wanted to be involved with that book, why we were involved, what we said in the book, what I've said about the book, what I've said about the people who contradicted our work, we were right. So now publicly, Dr. Washington said something I wrote down that I wanted. She said a number of things worthy of being written down, but this one really stuck with me. She said, in talking about Manning Marable's book and the politics of awards, she said the Pulitzer is determined by how big the book's advance was. And it's such a perfect little, it's such a perfect.
Now listen, that's called my ball.
Because, and I hope these drops are working, because that is such a bar, but because what she was saying was, once they invest through an advance in a product, if they give a lot of money to it, it's got to get the awards. They have to get return on investment, the return on their investment by having it win awards. So and there was a lot of praise for that book. A lot of praise for that book. Okay. One other thing from that, before we get to the sort of the close for the night, and I'll check the comments before I leave. If anybody has comments, questions, queries, conundrums, catechisms, cacophony, calumny, consternation, contemplation, condemnation, consternation, not constipation. in preparing for some of my comments and thinking about Malcolm and what I wanted to say, with one of the points being that one of the elements of Malcolm's politics that's often diminished are his his approach to the global community, militant solidarity with the broader world of radicals, radical Pan-Africanism for the African diaspora, Black-led revolutionary movements through the OAAU here in the United States. But again, as I mentioned, MarikaSherwood passed away last week. And never got to engage her personally, but was deeply appreciative of her work on Malcolm X. And what I learned through Amandla, whose life and family history is fascinating, I learned that MarikaSherwood, who wrote Malcolm X Visits Abroad, first of all, I didn't even think about it, but that she was a Jew. She was a Hungarian Jew who survived the Holocaust, which is, I didn't know any of that history. And apparently had a fascinating career in terms of her scholarship and work elsewhere. But I only, of course, knew her for her work on Malcolm. And again, preparing what I was going to talk about at the event, I went back to our collection of essays and was reminded of a number of things. One of them was of the great contribution to that book by Dr. Sundiata Chajua, who, of course, is our comrade over there on Black Liberation Media, among other things, the longtime scholar, editor of the Black Scholar Journal, and so where is... Oh man, this is really bugging tonight. This is really bugging. Okay. And so just a quick example of what he did here and why I wanted to. So in her book, well, as he writes here, in her book, Malcolm X Visits Abroad, April 64 to February 65, Sherwood discovered, recovered, and made superb use of international sources unexplored by Manning Marable. Her investigation led her to examine U.S. State Department records and documents in Lyndon B. Johnson's Presidential Library and Museum, sources ignored by Marable. The data gathered from her exploration of international sources led her to conclusions that differed from some of Marable's. The major problem with A Life of Reinvention, Marable's book, however, is not its inadequate exploration of international sources, but its interpretive framework. A Life of Reinvention is historical narrative, and because narrative histories are descriptive rather than analytical, they explain they explain how and what, but not why. So from there, and again, that's in our A Live Reinvention, Correcting Manning Marable's Malcolm X, and so please obviously check the book, Black Classic Press. Paul Coates, Baltimore, Maryland. You know, what Chajua does there is in just a few short pages related to Sherwood's work, and why I just wanted to raise her up and remind of some of this, is that Sherwood, well, in this case, just honestly assessed the recorded documents. And what Chajua is saying there, that because Marable was trying to create a narrative as opposed to just the facts, man, as they used to say, his narrative is that Malcolm was pretty cool but flawed, immature in his radical politics, and by the epilogue's conclusion of that book was a liberal Democrat supporter of Obama and gay. Which, as I said in our discussion the other day, I don't care. This is sort of the point that Chajua is making Sherwood, vis-a-vis Sherwood, interpretation. when that came up the other night, my point has always been, I was asked point blank, what if Dr. Ball, what would you think if Malcolm X, if it, in fact, the evidence was there that he was gay? And my answer has always been the same. I don't care. I don't care. He was not assassinated because he was gay any more than Martin Luther King was assassinated for cheating on Coretta or cheating on his PhD or whatever the hell else people said. I don't care. I just don't care. My point in bringing it up is only ever to point out that this is one of the many things that Marable does in the book that is convey without evidence to support this narrative. The simple fact is, if you read Marable's book and really anything else, there is no evidence that Malcolm X was a homosexual. Does that mean he wasn't? No. It just means that there's not evidence that he was. But again, that's not the point. The point is, why are people, going back to Bruce Perry, who came up this weekend, and others, why had that become a talking point for some? In many cases, more so than Malcolm's actual political worldview or his goals. So what Chajiwa shows is that, just as an example of this narrative, not only was Malcolm supposed to be gay, but Malcolm was also supposed to have been, as was Dr. BettyShabazz, scandalously unfaithful. How do they show that? Let me bring his book back up here, or his chapter in the book back up here. That's why I was not trying to do. That's what I was trying. The short of it is, what Chajiwa shows is that Sherwood uses the same body of text that Marable does to reach very different conclusions. So while she's exploring the Johnson administration and the state and surveillance, and in this particular incident or example of Malcolm's meeting with OAAU Secretary Lynn Shiflett, she says, "Hey, the diary said Shiflett and I met. We were in the hotel room from 6 to 11. We did this work. She left. And I was lonely, so I took a walk." That exact same encounter described by Malcolm in his diaries is written in Marable's book as Lynn Shiflett spent the night. So that's just one little example of how bad the scholarship is. Spent the night. It literally says she left at 11 o'clock. It literally says they were having a business meeting. It literally says this is something that happens somewhat routinely, and that she went home, Malcolm went on a walk. You could say you don't believe him and then offer up other evidence to support the claim, which Marable does not. Or you could just simply say what Sherwood did. This is what the diary says. Or you do what was done in Marable's book. You say she spent the night with Malcolm. So Chajiwa does a great job of pulling that point out and using it to show the flaws, as using it as an example to show the flaws in Marable's work. Again, with the point being ultimately that the goal here is to engage a historical figure in Malcolm X that cannot be avoided. He was the original too big to omit, as was said by Eric Holder of the corporate world when he was asked, why didn't you all go get these banks who ripped off the economy in 2008? They're too big to fail. Too big to fail. So Malcolm's too big to fail in terms of omission. So they just engage him fraudulently. with the ultimate goal of making sure, as the fifth tenet of the counterintelligence program says, that Black youth don't engage radical politics. Dr. Ball is a gay Black male. It clearly sounds like Dr. Marable was pandering to sell books and snare a pull-up to your king. According to his own Atlanta inner circle, was especially unfaithful, as was Cornel West. Is that what I don't know. Again, no, I agree with you on the pandering. It was clear that was part of the goal, was but I think it was more than just trying to get a Pulitzer, although that was part of it. I think part of it was to create a distraction and an argument in the community around Malcolm's sexuality, which again is to me irrelevant in the face of the ideas and the work he was doing that did get him killed. So that's my thing. I'm not interested. And we talked about this all weekend. In some ways it's a fault. Rashay Richardson said something interesting. She said of Margaret Washington, whose book on Sojourner Truth is somewhat legendary, her biography, that Richardson said biographers should have their own special separate category of scholars, because the work that goes into producing certainly a quality biography is something separate from other kinds of scholarship. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I thought that was, but I was admitting I've always, to a flaw, not read enough fiction, poetry, or biographies. Or when I read biographies, I'm reading them for such a certain interest that I either miss some things or skip some things or just don't care about some things. Because I'm never as interested in people's lives as much as I am their ideas and the work that they were doing. But to the point, and I said this to Amandla when he was telling me about MarikaSherwood, to a point, there's a flaw in my approach, because finding out Sherwood's background and all these other things about her life was actually pretty fascinating. And then finding out obviously other things about Malcolm and, their lives, it can be very fascinating. And, but I'm mostly interested, what were his ideas? What was he trying? I don't care what he was eating. I don't care what he was food wise or otherwise. I don't care what he was doing. I really don't care. I admit, I really almost don't care at all. But I also recognize there's a flaw, and there can be a flaw in that too. So, okay, one more thing before I go fully to your comments, and this is ultimately why. So not Ori. Hiram, said, do this, what I'm going to do starting Monday, weekly series, 100 Years of Malcolm X, right? But what really got me to get excited and to see the importance of what Hiram was talking about was this being, somebody sent me this and said, StephenASmith is talking about Malcolm X. And I said, you've got to be kidding.
Last item of the show I want to get into, I brought this up earlier. And it's involving Malcolm X, the late, great Malcolm X. Today, February 21st, marks the 60th anniversary of the death of the activist and civil rights leader who was assassinated at the Audobon Ballroom in Harlem, New York in 1965. Malcolm was a vocal advocate for Black empowerment and the promotion of Islam within the African American community, of course, and beyond. While a controversial figure to some, accused of preaching violence, Malcolm X is also a widely celebrated figure to many Americans for his pursuit of racial justice. As I think about Malcolm X and what he stood for, I find myself wondering what he would think about today's culture, particularly when it comes to the modern athlete. But before I get into that, let me say this. Malcolm X was not a man that preached violence. We're going to put that to bed right now. He preached an eye for an eye. He preached the importance of one's self-protection. He preached the importance of not turning the other cheek when somebody punches you or slaps you or kicks you or beats you. Last time I checked, that's self-defense. That's not preaching violence. He certainly didn't propose instigating it and igniting it. He talked about defending oneself and not letting people abuse you and just standing by idly and doing nothing. So let's get that out the way first. Secondly, I thought it was important to bring this subject up today because we saw the Four Nations hockey tournament come to its conclusion last night in Boston, Massachusetts, where Canada beat the United States 3-2 after Donald Trump gave a call to the Team USA, by the way, encouraging them to victory before they lost. But that's a different subject for another day. Not his fault. But it happened. And after we saw that match, or even when we saw it Saturday and we saw United States being booed while the United States national anthem was being sung, and we saw the Canadians come at us the way that they did. We beat them Saturday. They beat us last night. We have to remember.
No, he was right about that first part.
What instigated that, what started that to some degree. Donald Trump talking about making Canada the 51st state. Obviously, they don't take kindly to that. Okay? And
message.
Trudeau, President of Canada, he spoke about that as well in the aftermath of Canada's victory. It's important to recognize that emanating off of that subject, at the same time that hockey had elevated its profile exponentially because everybody was watching because of the friction and the tension that existed between Team USA and Canada, it was an opportunity to also lament what we had witnessed for NBA All-Star Weekend in San Francisco.
He's still talking about Malcolm X. Remember that, right?
We saw a new format instituted. We saw players, new rules implemented because players hadn't been given effort and they were walking around like they didn't care. Now, what would that have to do with the assassination of Malcolm X? Directly, absolutely nothing. Indirectly, everything. You see, Malcolm X was about black empowerment. He was also about black economic empowerment. He wanted equal opportunities and civil rights for us as a nation of people. He also wanted us to maximize those opportunities and achieve all we could. But in the process of that, uplift one another along the way. Become a coalition. Not be a collection of individual parts, but come together as one and understand the importance of being together and how much that would serve to empower us in whatever agendas and missions we had moving forward. We just sat here and we talked about Donald Trump, and we talked about Donald Trump talking about the president for Ukraine. We didn't talk about Donald Trump's position in purging parts of the federal government, including DEI. We didn't talk about some of the things black folks fear, as my buddy Roland Martin pointed out when he said that there's a concerted effort to scale back every bit of progress we made since civil rights legislation came into play in 1964. We haven't talked about that. You know what else? We wouldn't have to if we were together more, but we're not. And that's why I thought that on a day like today, where we're acknowledging the 60-year anniversary of the assassination of Malcolm X, was to remind people of exactly who he was and what he would have hoped for. Yes, Malcolm X evolved. Yes, as he evolved, he thought a little bit differently. And he was more embracing of a mosaic society as opposed to just a black one. All of those things are true. But he also preached about the importance of togetherness. And I think about so many things that professional athletes have and the wealth they've been able to accumulate, the generational wealth that some have been able to acquire, and how there's so many instances where we're nothing more than individual parts. I wonder, for example, when the George Floyd murders took place, the George Floyd murder in Minnesota, right around the time of COVID. I wonder what would have happened instead of folks talking about taking a knee and locking arms with one another. I wonder what would have happened if the athletes themselves had pooled their resources and use that money to funnel the lobbyists on Capitol Hill to push their agendas to the politicians who are legislating laws in our land. Could you imagine what that would have done? Think about some of the things that we're questioning right now. Think about some of the things that are going on in our society. Think about the fear that's permeating through our nation, where you talk about people losing their rights, wondering what's going to happen to them. Think about entitlement programs that's going to evaporate before our very eyes. Think about all those things. Would we have to worry about it as much if folks had come together and pooled their resources to make sure to provide real influence so real things could get done? When I think about Malcolm X, just like when I think about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
I don't know. I never finished it the first time I tried to watch it.
And on a day like today, not only do I think of Dr. Malcolm X on the 60th anniversary of his assassination, I also think about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and what the late, great Harry Belafonte once said that Dr. Martin Luther King said to him in his waning days. As a matter of fact, it might have been the day he was assassinated. He said, "I fear that I've led our people into a burning house," preaching about the importance of desegregation and all that could emanate from it. He wondered whether or not he truly had led us into a burning house. That what he had wished for, that what we would ultimately capture, would lead to our fragmentation instead of our togetherness. I don't know if that's what happened. More qualified minds than me can speculate about that, or even
Ain't no
edify
such
you
thing,
with their
Stephen A.
information.
Ain't no
What I
such
can
thing.
say is that on a day like today, it is appropriate to at least think about that. To at least ask yourself that question. How together are we? How together should we be? And if indeed we ever came together, how much beneficial would it be for all of us? Not just the Black community, but America as a whole.
The Mosaic Society.
It's just a thought that I...
So remember, as I was accused of many things in the chat just now. Remember why we looked at that. We were looking at that to be reminded that this is why starting. Oh, I did it again. Why does this thing keep showing up like this? Hold up. Starting Monday on Black Liberation Media, on my show, and I'm going to invite everybody everywhere to join. We're going to follow Hiram's call and launch the weekly series 100 Years of Malcolm X. So every Monday, my show will feature something related to Malcolm X, culminating in something we'll have to work on and put together for the big Monday, May 19th birthday, official birthday, 100th birthday of Malcolm. And but yeah, because a lot of folks are obviously out here bringing him up, and in some like StephenASmith, some in more sophisticated ways, making the contradictions more obscure. So we're gonna offer up some minor contribution to the world in trying to make that, to correct that imbalance, because that was a mess. It did come up over the weekend that Malcolm, he's often clipped in those, I believe it's the 1960 speech, praising the potential Black businesses and Black capitalism to be successful. And a lot of people clip that and leave him there with that. And it's clear that he had himself become more clear about the flaws and the failures of that. So this idea that we would come together and pool our resources. The other thing I was thinking is that Stephen A. My initial thought was, if all the Black NBA players got together and said, or in any league got together and said, we're going to do anything, we're going to hire a lobbyist who's going to go to Congress and advocate for what exactly, I wasn't sure, but something along the lines of, I don't know, something improving the police or something economically. If Black people really did that, Stephen A. would be the first one up there talking about, what are y'all doing? What are y'all doing? So this idea that he's now saying, why in 2025, after 50 years of broadcasting and 20 years as a top, most paid journalist in ESPN or whatever, now I've decided that this will be the time I bring up Malcolm and suggest that we all unify and get a lobbyist. Yeah, he did say their agenda. I thought, well, I assumed in the moment he was talking about the player of the agenda of the players. No, maybe I was doing too much. Anyway, all right, folks. Before I wrap up, any comments, questions, queries, conundrums, catechisms? Please do like, share, subscribe, do all the things. Make sure you've done the same thing over there at Black Liberation Media. My bad. I didn't mean therapy and reparations. But remember the point of that. No, you're right. I agree. They don't have an agenda. And Trump makes it easier. Yeah. No, obviously too Black. That's a really good point. And that's part of the point. Of course, the players don't have. I mean, what would they have? What would they? I mean, they did start at one point. Remember, they did have one moment of maybe we're going to go on strike, and then what happened? Obama called LeBron and said, "LeBron, what are you boy down there trying to do? I got 40 acres of an estate to pay for. You better get out there and shut up and dribble." Yeah. So, I mean, and then Stephen A. Smith would have been over there, co-signing the whole thing. That was wild right there. So my apologies, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and blame Hiram. It was his inspiration and idea. I'm just trying to follow instructions. Yeah, people tell me hate is a strong word, but I'm like, it's appropriate. Don't tell me it's strong. It's appropriate. I mean, shit. So anyway, let me just, again, big shout out. Thank you, Rashay Richardson, for the invitation. Salute to the Africana Studies and Research Center, especially its original purpose. Big salute to the late, great founding director, Dr. James Turner. May he rest in power. Equally big salute to Dean Janice Turner, who it was great to break bread with her this weekend. Dr. Margaret Washington, had not ever really got to, I was telling her, I never got to really hang out with her when I was there as a student. Had a great day of breaking bread and talking trash and even a little bit of the scuttlebutt. I mean, it was dope. And then really big salute to Amandla, Mahmoud, Mamadou, Mamadou, Professor Muhammad. I'm telling you, wait till we. I'm predicting her book is about to be fire. Yeah, so I just and salute to everybody. There's grad students and faculty that they're really trying. I mean, there's not everybody's out here trying to get a check, man. People are really trying to find ways to be meaningful and have a meaningful contribution. And it's not all good for people at the Ivory Tower, for Africans in the Ivory Tower. First of all, it's freezing up there. It's isolated cold up there. As was pointed out to me, the body count in the original way my generation used to mean, and not y'all young folks with your nasty selves, but folks, there's been the Ithaca Gorges have had bodies found in. There was apparently and allegedly from self offing, but then there was apparently some alleged try to avoid the language, but assisted. And what Amanda was pointing out was that out of, I think there were like 11, I forgot out of the number of, there were all these deaths and incidents and more than well over half. I want to say it's even more than that. It was like 75% of the statements offered by the university were about the activists criticizing the genocide in Palestine and then Cornell's relationship to it. But of course, Benjamin Netanyahu's father was a big time Cornellian or whatever they call him. And now Cornell got the big tech lab or whatever that thing was that presides over the drones or the surveillance or some tech, military tech in Israel, some crazy. I can't even keep up with all the stuff. But then also there's the that sort of subtle white supremacy, the more overt white supremacy, the hostility in academic spaces to work people are trying to do. There's all kinds of little things. So some folks are trying, it was like, yeah. Hey, put your clothes on. Put on another layer. You know what I'm saying? About to start my OnlyFans channel. A perfectly fully dressed man puts on more clothes. Watch me put on more clothes. Yeah. So, but the university was mostly interested in condemning and cracking down on the activists and making their lives as hard as possible, to the point where if I wanted to see Mahmoud in the AfricanaStudies and Research Center, it would have had to been him sneaking in there for a few minutes because he's not allowed to be on campus. So, but anyway, big shout out to everybody. I had a really good time, and I'm glad we got to build with Russell Rickford a little bit, smooth over a couple things, learn a little couple insights, and I wish him well in his struggle with the university too. Folks getting people's jobs are being threatened and I remember reading his speech. It was not the most militant pro-Palestinian. It was just but again, it don't even take that much. So that's it. My only clothes channel. Only threads. Nice. That's how it's gonna be. That's what I'm talking about. So but yeah, all right, everybody. I will see you Monday morning with part 1 of our 100 Years of Malcolm series. Thank you all for coming through tonight. If you see this later, thanks to you as well. Peace if you're willing to fight for it, as Fred Hampton used to say, only if you're willing to fight for it. Salute to Hiram for the idea. And thanks, everybody. It's been fun. Appreciate you. Again, peace if you're willing to fight for it. And I'll see you next time at
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.
And what do you sacrifice?
Calm, kindness, kinship, love. I've given up all chance at inner peace. I made my mind a sunless space. I share my dreams with ghosts. I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago for which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight, that set me on a path from which there's no escape. I yearn to be a savior against injustice without contemplating the cost, and by the time I look down, there's no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see. Now, the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything, 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 everything.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.